The movie starts with Roy and his friend Lucas staying in a hotel with a young boy named Alton. While they are inside the room, a news report suddenly appears on TV. The reporter says that a missing boy named Alton is believed to be traveling with two armed men. As soon as Roy and Lucas hear this, they know things are getting serious. They quickly pack up and leave before anyone notices them. After they leave, the hotel worker sees the news and realizes who they were. He calls the police and tells them the group was heading toward Texas. Later, while driving, Roy and Lucas hear more reports about themselves on the radio. Since the police are now actively searching for them, they decide to take a different route. When it gets dark, Lucas switches off the headlights and uses special night vision goggles to drive without being seen. Alton sits quietly in the back reading a comic book with a small light. Lucas tells him to turn it off so nobody can spot their vehicle. They travel through several small towns without getting caught. After many hours, Roy suggests taking a short break. Lucas turns the headlights back on, but they suddenly notice a vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. He barely avoids hitting it, but another car coming from the opposite side crashes into them. A young man is hurt in the accident, so Lucas gets out to help. A police officer soon arrives and immediately recognizes the group. He reaches for his radio to call for backup, but Lucas pulls out a gun and warns him not to move. Thomas also points a shotgun at the officer. The officer tries to react, but Lucas shoots first. The officer falls down, though he survives because he is wearing body armor. Roy and Lucas waste no time and escape again. At the same time in Texas, a preacher named Pastor Calvin sends two men to search for Alton. Later, he stands in front of his followers and starts saying random numbers that sound like a secret message. Not long after, Agent Miller and an FBI team arrive and arrest him. His followers are moved to a nearby school building. There, Agent Miller brings in a specialist named Paul to question the pastor. Paul asks about the strange numbers because he thinks they could be secret government information. The pastor says the numbers are not his and explains that everything is connected to a boy named Alton. He tells Paul that Alton has unusual abilities. The boy can understand many languages and somehow hear messages sent through radios and satellites. The pastor admits that he used Alton's gifts to grow his group and gain more followers. He also says he cared about Alton like a son, but recently Roy, the boy's real father, took him away. The pastor wants Alton back because his whole group depends on him. Meanwhile, Roy, Lucas, and Alton arrive at the house of their friend Eldon. Eldon lets them stay for the night and covers every window and door with curtains. He has a serious problem with bright light, so he always wears special glasses and avoids sunlight. Later, Alton falls asleep and everyone tries to rest. During the night, the entire house suddenly starts shaking. Roy hears Alton scream and runs into his room. He finds Eldon sitting directly in front of the boy while a bright light shines out of Alton's eyes onto him. Roy immediately pulls Eldon away and holds his son, who looks like he is in pain. Back in Texas, Paul keeps talking to people from the pastor's group. They tell him that strange energy comes from Alton's eyes. Anyone touched by it sees strange visions that are hard to explain. One woman says she could not understand what she saw, but being close to Alton made her feel calm and safe. Paul then asks about March 6th because that date keeps coming up again and again. The woman says March 6th will be Judgment Day and only people near Alton will be protected. Paul thinks it sounds strange, but he continues gathering information. After the questioning ends, several people are released, including Doki and Levi, the same two men who were sent to find Alton. The next morning, Alton feels much better. Lucas decides they should use Eldon's van instead of their own vehicle so the police will not recognize them. Once everything is ready, Roy turns to Eldon and asks why he got so close to Alton during the night. He demands to know exactly what Eldon saw. Eldon simply said that he could not control himself. Roy did not like that answer at all. He said he could not afford to trust anyone right now, and even pulled out his gun. A little later, Roy, Lucas, and Alton got back on the road. During the trip, Alton spent most of his time reading Superman comics. Roy was never interested in superhero stories, but Alton loved them. He especially liked how Superman came from another world and became stronger because of the sun. While reading, Alton suddenly started speaking words in a language nobody understood. Roy had seen this before and guessed that the boy was picking up radio signals again. To test it, Lucas changed the radio station and was shocked when he heard the exact same message Alton had just spoken. This was more proof that the boy could do things no normal person could. They kept driving until they stopped at a gas station. This is where things became even stranger. Roy used a payphone and called his former wife Sarah. He told her they needed help because the danger around them was getting worse. While Roy was talking, Alton quietly walked away from the van and stared up at the sky. A woman nearby noticed him and asked if he was by himself. Roy quickly ran over, told her Alton was his son, and gently warned the boy not to wander off alone. Alton apologized and got back near the van. A few moments later, something strange happened above them. Pieces of burning metal started falling from the sky. Everyone around became frightened. Roy immediately told Lucas they had to leave right away. The group jumped into the van and headed for Sarah's house. It looked like Alton's powers had somehow caused what happened, but he still had very little control over them. Using those powers put a huge strain on his body. Before long, blood started coming from his nose and ears. Roy became terrified and tried everything he could to help his son. After a long drive, they finally reached Sarah's home. Sarah was happy to see Alton again after being apart from him for so long. Years ago, when Alton first started showing strange abilities, she became scared and left because she did not understand what was happening. Ever since then, she had felt bad about that choice. Now she wanted to make things right and help protect him. Later that night, after Alton had fallen asleep, Sarah asked Roy where they were actually going. Roy explained that Alton had somehow given him a set of exact coordinates a few days earlier. They had to reach that location on March 6th. He had no idea what would happen there, but he believed all the answers were waiting at that place. The problem was that March 6th was only 3 days away. Roy decided they would spend one night at Sarah's house and continue traveling the next day. What they did not know was that Doki and Levi were still hunting for them. The two men were armed and ready to do whatever it took to find Alton. First, they visited Sarah's mother's house, hoping she knew where the boy was. When they got nothing useful there, they went to Eldon's house. Eldon was scared and eventually told them that Roy had taken Alton away in his van. At the same time, Agent Miller and Dr. Paul arrived at the damaged gas station to investigate what had happened. There they learned something very important. The burning objects that fell from the sky were actually pieces of a government satellite. That satellite had been used to track Alton's location. This discovery showed that the boy's powers were much stronger than anyone had imagined. Because of this, the government started treating the case as a major threat. Agent Miller gave Paul a bigger role in the investigation and asked him to find a way to track Alton. After studying the evidence, Paul noticed that Alton's powers did not leave radiation behind, but they did create a lot of heat. That meant special heat detecting cameras could find him. Paul came up with a plan to use drones and search for heat signals whenever Alton used his abilities. Back at Sarah's house, Alton rested while Lucas prepared another vehicle for the next part of their trip. Once it became dark, the group quietly left the house and continued their journey toward the mysterious place Alton needed to reach. While they were driving, Sarah finally asked Alton if he was the reason the satellite fell from the sky. Alton honestly said yes. He explained that the government was using it to follow them, so he brought it down. Roy, Sarah, and Lucas could hardly believe what they were hearing. Not long after that, Alton suddenly looked very sick. He started having trouble breathing, and Roy quickly told Lucas to stop the vehicle. Sarah tried to comfort him, but Alton began moving his hand through the air like he was reading something nobody else could see. Then a powerful light burst out from his eyes. The flash was so bright that Roy, Sarah, and Lucas could not see for a few seconds. Alton stepped outside the vehicle, still gasping for air. Sarah rushed after him to help. Lucas thought they should take him to a hospital, but Roy strongly disagreed. He knew the authorities would find them there right away. The two started arguing until Alton suddenly spoke up. He warned them that they needed to leave because someone was coming. When Sarah asked who, Alton pointed up at the sky. Through the clouds, a strange light could be seen. Alton quickly came up with a plan. He told Sarah and Lucas to go somewhere safe and stay hidden. Roy picked him up and carried him into a nearby forest. Meanwhile, Sarah and Lucas found a hotel where they could stay for the night. After walking for a while, Roy and Alton reached a cave and decided to rest there. Inside the cave, Alton told his father that they had to wait until morning. Then he said something surprising. He told Roy that he wanted to see the sun. Roy immediately refused because he thought sunlight could hurt him, but Alton kept saying it was important. They stayed in the cave all night. When the sun finally began to rise, Alton asked Roy to take him outside. Roy was worried, but he trusted his son and agreed. The moment sunlight touched Alton, his whole body started glowing. At first it looked painful, especially around his eyes. But after a few moments, something amazing happened. Instead of hurting him, the sunlight made him stronger. Huge amounts of energy burst out from his body and spread across the area like a giant invisible wave. Back at the hotel, Sarah and Lucas sat nervously behind locked doors, hoping Roy and Alton were okay. Hours later, someone knocked on the door. When they opened it, Roy and Alton were standing there. Alton looked completely fine. He explained that sunlight had restored his strength. More importantly, he now understood what he really was. Then he revealed a secret that shocked everyone. He said there was another world connected to theirs, a place where strange beings made of light existed. Roy confirmed that he had actually seen these creatures when Alton released that huge energy wave. He believed the energy could open a path between the two worlds. However, Alton could only return home if he opened that path at the exact location shown in the coordinates. This made reaching the destination on March 6th even more important. Lucas promised he would help no matter what happened. Sarah tried to stay strong, but deep inside she was scared. She knew she might lose her son again. Even so, the group had no choice but to keep moving. As they prepared to leave the hotel, trouble arrived once again. Doki and Levi suddenly appeared and attacked Lucas with a shotgun. They demanded that Alton be handed over. Roy quickly fired at Doki, but the fight continued. Levi jumped in, and together the two men managed to overpower Roy and Lucas. They tied both of them up. Levi then rushed into the hotel room where Sarah was trying to hide with Alton inside the bathroom. Alton's eyes started glowing again, but Levi quickly covered his face with a cloth before he could do anything. Sarah was tied to a pipe, and the two kidnappers grabbed Alton and drove away. Sarah struggled until she finally freed herself. She then untied Roy. Soon they learned that Lucas was still alive because he had been wearing a bulletproof vest under his clothes. Without wasting any time, the three jumped into a vehicle and went after the kidnappers. Roy drove as fast as he could, but eventually they reached a military checkpoint blocking the road. Not wanting to attract attention, Roy calmly joined the line of cars passing through. A little farther ahead, they spotted the same truck Doki and Levi had been using, but when they checked it, the truck was empty. There was blood on the windows, and Alton was nowhere to be seen. Roy and Sarah became terrified, thinking something horrible had happened to him. Even so, they kept moving forward. Later that night, Sarah cleaned Roy's injuries and took care of him while they tried to figure out what to do next. Lucas was sure that Alton had been taken by the government. He told Roy that they had to find where the boy was being kept. Roy felt terrible and kept blaming himself for not keeping his son safe. Soon they learned the truth. The FBI had captured Alton and brought him to a secret research facility. There, a group of people tried to question him while special equipment watched every signal around him. A little later, Paul arrived. The moment Alton saw him, he said he only wanted to talk to Paul. Everyone in the room was surprised because they had no idea how Alton even knew who Paul was. They decided to leave the two alone. As soon as the room was empty, Alton secretly used his powers. He changed what the security cameras were showing so it looked like he was sitting still, even though he had gotten up. He also locked the room so nobody could enter. Then he asked Paul to come closer. Paul was nervous, but he slowly walked forward. He asked Alton a simple question. Was he some kind of dangerous weapon, or was he here to save people? Alton calmly said he was neither. He explained that he was only a boy from another world who needed to return home. To show Paul he was telling the truth, Alton released the bright light from his eyes again. The room filled with light, and Paul saw the same strange visions others had seen before. At that moment, he finally believed everything. Back outside, Roy had no idea what to do next. He wandered around feeling lost. Then a public phone nearby suddenly started ringing. Roy answered it and heard Paul's voice. Paul told him that Alton was safe and that he planned to bring him back. He also said he had finally figured out the message Alton had been trying to send. He now knew the exact place they needed to reach before the next day. Around the same time, Alton spotted a car in a parking lot. Using his powers, he unlocked it and started the engine without even touching the keys. Paul could hardly believe what he was seeing. Meanwhile, Agent Miller and the FBI were searching all over the facility. Before leaving, Alton had shut down the entire building's power. Once the backup generators came online, soldiers were sent out to find him and Paul. Many people started thinking that Alton had somehow convinced Paul to help him. The next morning, March 6th finally arrived. Roy, Sarah, and Lucas reached the meeting point and found Alton there with Paul. Paul warned them that the military already knew where they were going. He said the roads would soon be blocked. Even after hearing that, Alton stayed calm and said they would still make it through. Everyone agreed that getting him to his destination was the most important thing. Paul wanted to come along and help, but Roy thanked him and told him not to put himself in danger. While they were talking, Paul noticed handcuffs on Lucas. He realized Lucas was a police officer and came up with an idea. He asked for the handcuffs so it would look like Alton had forced him to help. Lucas handed them over and Paul cuffed himself before staying behind to wait for the... Roy, Sarah, Lucas, and Alton continued the journey alone. Before heading out, they stopped in an open field near an old road. Roy gave Sarah and Alton protective vests to wear. Everyone knew they might not stay together much longer. The family hugged each other tightly, trying to enjoy every last moment together. A little later, Roy told Lucas that he had already done enough and could leave if he wanted. Lucas shook his head and said he was staying until the very end. The group got back on the road. During the drive, Alton said the place they were looking for was very close now. Just ahead, they saw exactly what Paul had warned them about. A large military checkpoint was blocking the road. Armed soldiers stood everywhere. Roy kept driving and did not slow down. Alton then could not shoot unless someone attacked first. After Roy then pressed the move out of the allowing they got past the spikes any farther. Alton remained. He grabbed some nearby at this and worked, while the military followed to get much farther ahead. After running across they arrived at exactly Alton forward by himself. As the sunlight touched him, the same powerful energy started coming out of his body. The energy spread across the whole area and kept getting bigger. Not far away, Roy and Lil trying to everything. Something unbelievable happened. Structure inside the been talking about all right in at the luckily survived, dazed by what the react. Back near the energy field, Sarah stood beside Alton as several strange beings made entirely of light appeared. The creatures seemed peaceful and motioned for Alton to come with. Before leaving, Alton turned around one last time and his mother. He smiled softly, letting her know everything would be okay. Moments later, the energy field slowly began disappearing. Alton walked away with the light beings and entered their world. Sarah could not hold back her tears, but she also felt relief. She knew her son was finally somewhere safe. If he had stayed behind, he probably would have spent the rest of his life being studied and soon after, the authorities arrested Roy and Luke. Even so, neither of them looked upset. They were happy because they had completed their mission and helped Alton get home. Later, Luke was questioned by investigators. A detective asked where Alton and Sarah had gone. Lucas simply said he did not know. The only thing he was sure about was that Alton was now somewhere nobody could reach him. The detective was not satisfied with that answer and called Paul in to continue the questioning. Paul asked the usual questions, but both men already knew that Alton was finally safe. At the same time, Sarah managed to avoid the authorities and stayed at a hotel. After everything she had gone through, she finally felt she was thankful she had been able to spend those last months with her son. Eventually, the authorities realized they were not getting any information. After many interviews and questions, Roy and Luke were released. Sometime later, Roy was standing outside when he noticed a bright light in the sky. It immediately reminded him of Alton.
Then, for just a second, a small glow appeared in Roy's eyes, looking very similar to the energy Alton used. This may mean that Roy is connected to that mysterious world too. And maybe one day, somewhere in the future, father and son will meet again. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.